The eviction notice was still clutched tightly in her shaking hand when the old pickup truck rolled to a stop in front of the apartment building. The driver stepped out wearing faded jeans, dusty work boots, and a worn flannel shirt stained with paint and sawdust. Neighbors whispered that he was just another struggling contractor looking for cheap work. When he quietly offered the desperate young woman a place to stay until she got back on her feet, she had no idea she was accepting help from the wealthiest man in Chicago, a billionaire who had spent years hiding behind the life of an ordinary builder. The truth would not be revealed until one unforgettable afternoon that changed both of their lives forever. If you believe kindness is more valuable than money, humility is stronger than pride, and everyone deserves hope and a second chance, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. Harper Collins had never imagined losing everything before her 30th birthday. She had worked faithfully for 6 years as a marketing manager at a publishing company, believing hard work guaranteed stability. Then a sudden corporate merger erased hundreds of jobs overnight. Despite months of searching, every interview ended with another polite rejection. Her savings disappeared into rent, groceries, and medical bills left over from caring for her late mother during her final illness. The morning the landlord handed Harper the eviction notice, she felt something inside her quietly break. She packed her belongings into 3 old suitcases, trying to ignore the curious eyes watching from nearby balconies. She smiled politely at everyone, refusing to let strangers see how frightened she truly was. Across the street, a contractor named Mason Hale had spent the morning repairing broken porch steps for an elderly couple who couldn't afford professional labor. Mason accepted only enough money to cover materials, insisting they save the rest for medicine. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Mason. He repaired leaking roofs, fixed broken fences, and quietly helped struggling families without expecting recognition. What nobody knew was that Mason secretly owned Hale Urban Development, the largest real estate company in Chicago. 15 years earlier, after inheriting his father's construction business, Mason had transformed it into a billion-dollar empire. Yet after watching executives become disconnected from ordinary people, he created an unusual routine. Several days each week, he worked anonymously as a contractor under his own first name, visiting neighborhoods, speaking directly with residents, and understanding problems that boardroom meetings could never reveal. Only his attorney, personal assistant, and 2 lifelong friends knew the truth. When Mason noticed Harper struggling with heavy suitcases, he immediately offered assistance. She thanked him but quietly admitted she had nowhere to go. Without hesitation, Mason explained that the small guest cottage behind his farmhouse sat completely empty. It wasn't luxurious, but it was safe, clean, and available for as long as she needed to rebuild her life. Harper hesitated. Accepting help from a stranger felt risky. Still, something about Mason's calm voice and gentle eyes inspired trust. The cottage was modest but charming. Fresh flowers surrounded the porch. Birds nested in nearby trees. Inside, everything was simple, comfortable, and carefully maintained. Harper expected someone struggling financially to live very differently. Instead, Mason seemed genuinely content with ordinary routines. Every morning he left before sunrise carrying a toolbox in the back of his aging pickup truck. Every afternoon he returned covered in dust, smiling despite long hours of physical labor. He cooked simple meals, repaired furniture instead of replacing it, and spent evenings reading books rather than chasing luxury. Harper slowly realized she admired his peaceful outlook. Over the following weeks, she insisted on contributing however she could. She cleaned the cottage, planted vegetables in the garden, and prepared dinners whenever Mason worked late. Their conversations grew longer each afternoon. Harper shared stories about her mother. Mason spoke about learning construction from his father as a teenager. Neither realized they were quietly healing old wounds simply by listening. One sunny afternoon Harper accompanied Mason to help renovate a community youth center. She watched neighborhood children run excitedly toward him. They greeted him like family. Parents thanked him for repairing playground equipment free of charge. Retired veterans shook his hand with deep respect. Harper wondered how one ordinary contractor had earned so much admiration. Mason simply smiled and kept working. Several weeks later, Harper finally secured an interview with one of Chicago's largest development companies. She arrived wearing her best suit. To her surprise, the receptionist escorted her directly into the executive boardroom. She assumed there had been some mistake. Minutes later the doors opened. Executives stood respectfully. Then Mason walked inside. Not wearing work boots. Not carrying a toolbox. He wore a tailored business suit as every board member greeted him as Chairman Hale. Harper sat frozen. She couldn't understand what she was seeing. The struggling contractor who had fixed fences and painted porches was suddenly surrounded by corporate leaders treating him like one of the most influential businessmen in the country. Mason smiled warmly. He explained everything. Years earlier, enormous wealth had nearly convinced him that success could only be measured by profit. He feared becoming disconnected from ordinary families whose lives depended upon decisions made in elegant offices. Working anonymously kept him grounded. It reminded him why homes mattered far more than buildings. Harper admitted she felt embarrassed. She worried she had unknowingly taken advantage of his generosity. Mason gently shook his head. He explained that kindness expecting repayment was merely another business transaction. Real generosity asked for nothing in return. Instead of offering Harper charity, Mason offered her the position she had interviewed for. Not because she knew him. Not because she had lived on his property. He explained that throughout the previous month he had quietly watched her integrity. She always insisted on contributing despite having almost nothing. She treated every person with respect regardless of their job title. She never complained. She simply kept trying. Those qualities mattered more than any resume. Harper accepted with grateful tears. Over the next 2 years she helped transform the company's community housing programs. Affordable neighborhoods replaced abandoned buildings. Job training centers opened beside new apartment complexes. Families received opportunities rather than temporary assistance. Harper often reminded younger employees that every important decision affected real people, not just financial reports. One bright afternoon, the neighborhood where Mason had first met Harper celebrated the opening of a new family resource center. Residents applauded as children filled the playground. Reporters asked Mason why he still drove an old pickup truck despite owning one of the nation's largest development companies. He smiled. Because that truck had introduced him to friendships no luxury car ever could. The audience laughed warmly. Then Mason invited Harper onto the stage. He told everyone the company hadn't changed because of billion-dollar investments. It had changed because one determined young woman reminded every executive that compassion belonged in every business plan. Harper looked across the cheering crowd and remembered the painful afternoon she believed her future had ended. If someone had told her then that losing her apartment would eventually lead her toward purpose, friendship, and hope, she never would have believed it. Before this story comes to an end, we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe true character is revealed by how someone treats others before knowing who they really are? Leave a meaningful comment below because your story may inspire someone else today. As warm afternoon sunlight reflected across the newly completed neighborhood, Mason and Harper watched families unlock the doors to homes they once thought they could never afford. Neither of them measured success by wealth anymore. They measured it by children's laughter, grateful parents, and communities growing stronger together. Sometimes life forces us to leave behind the place we called home so we can discover the people who help us build a better one. And sometimes the richest person in the city is the one living the simplest life, proving that true greatness is never found in what we own, but in the lives we quietly choose to lift. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember, the strongest foundations are built not with concrete or steel, but with humility, compassion, and the courage to help someone before they can ever repay you.